Robert, I can't hear Jay.
Right. Check. Can you hear me okay, Mr. Dan Pilla?
Okay, now I can hear you.
Let's make sure Dan can hear me okay.
I can hear you just fine now, Jay.
All right. We're going live on the Pilla Tax Academy show. Had a little technical difficulties to start it up, but guess how quick we can be here on this show? Real quick. And speaking of real quick, Dan, there's been some real quick changes that have happened with our incredible country here. You know, there's so many things that are going on in the country. There's so many people with so many different political views, but the bottom line is people have to take care of their families. People have to take care of their businesses. And guess what? No matter what goes on politically, here's what we found out. The IRS is not going anywhere. And you still are accountable. You still are accountable to what's happening with the IRS tax code. So we've got our incredible Mr. Dan Pilla here, the nation's top authority in and with taxes, as quoted by many people, and we believe the same. And so, Dan, we got some notes here that, and there's a lot of different feedback coming in. I think the one thing that we want to focus on tonight was as far as people's businesses in 2020. How hard were they hit? There were people that took PPP loans, and then some used that money. Some used that money quickly, and it wasn't enough. And so there's all kind of questions that are coming back to us now, and it's going throughout the nation. There's a lot of confusion, Dan, and this is a place on the Pilla Tax Academy with this particular show to where you can get some clarity on what's going on. So over to you, Dan. Let's bring some common sense and some peace and some education and knowledge to the platform and empower our viewers tonight. What do you say, Dan?
Well, yeah, it's very important that we do that, Jay. And there's been some disturbing things that have gone on in our country here in the last 48 hours. There's no question about that. But just as you said, Jay, the beat goes on when it comes to business, when it comes to tax compliance. It doesn't make any difference what your political views are. It doesn't make any difference, whether you zig or zag on the political spectrum. That's entirely irrelevant when it comes to the IRS. The IRS is an equal opportunity oppressor, Jay, when it comes to small businesses. And small businesses have always been targeted by the IRS. And I know we've got a great audience of small business owners out there. And I want to bring them, as you said, some peace and some comfort here and some knowledge as to what's going on, particularly with this new tax law that was passed. As you know, the president signed the Consolidated Appropriations Act on December 27th. A massive tax change. We talked about this last time on the Pilla Tax Academy show. We talked about the continuation of the Paycheck Protection Program loan, but there's also in this new law, Jay, a second bite of the apple. It's called the second draw loan, the Paycheck Protection Second Draw Loan. You mentioned businesses that might not have gotten enough relief out of their first Paycheck Protection Program loan. So this second draw loan, Jay, is very, very important, and it could help millions of businesses out there as they continue to move through this COVID-19 disaster that we've been dealing with here for 9 months now in the United States.
I say we get into some questions so we can get into some solutions. And by the way, to our listeners, be sure to share this with as many people as you can, because there's a lot of people out there. We know there's around 40, 50 million small business owners out there. And guess what? Based on what Dan Pilla is saying, there's going to be millions of businesses get whacked by the IRS because people didn't know what to do. Is it fair? No. But do we have to think that life is fair? No, we have to make sure that we adjust and adapt and overcome. And that's why we're going to tell you the raw truth here. We're going to bring you raw facts. So, Dan, I want to get into some questions. Are you saying that businesses can actually get 2 PPP loans? Is that what I kind of heard you say in your last words?
Well, you heard me talk about a second draw loan. That's the title that's given this program in the law. Now, here's the technicality, Jay. It's actually not a second PPP loan. In order to qualify for this second draw loan, you must have received a PPP loan in the first place, and then you must have used all that money by the time you apply for what's called the second draw loan. Or if you haven't used all that money, you must have a good faith, reasonable belief that you will use all the money before you're funded with the second one. And then you can go back for a second draw. It's the same loan for all practical purposes. It's just a second draw. Now, some of the conditions, most of the conditions are exactly the same as the original PPP program. Some of the conditions are different. And so we probably want to talk about some of those differences.
I really think it's important when you say talk about some of those differences. Now, you said earlier, I remember last week, you talked about businesses still have to qualify in regards to this. What does that mean?
Yeah, what that means, Jay, is there's a qualification in terms of business size, and there's a qualification in terms of business revenue. And here's how it works. Under the original PPP program, which has been extended, by the way, so if you haven't gotten any PPP loan at all, you still have the opportunity to do that. We talked about that last week, and that opportunity goes through March the 31st of 2021. So that opportunity still exists. Now, with respect to the second draw loan, Jay, what's different here primarily, as I said, is the number of employees and the revenue qualifications. So the number of employees has dropped from 500 to 300. In order to qualify for the second draw loan, you can't have any more than 300 employees unless you have multiple physical locations for your business. If there are multiple physical locations, then the 500 employee rule works. But for all practical purposes, for most businesses out there, especially small businesses, it's going to be that 300 employee mark, which frankly, Jay, is not a small business. Now, it's classified as a small business by the IRS, but anybody that's got 200-300 employees has got a monster operation. You and I both know that. All right, so that's number one. Secondly is the revenue qualifications. Now, this is very important. In order to qualify for a second draw loan, you must be able to demonstrate that your revenue in 2020, in any one quarter of 2020, was at least 25% less than the comparable quarter in 2019. All right, so this is a quarter by quarter analysis, Jay. It's not for the entire year. All right. So if your business tanked, let's say you're in a restaurant or a bar business, your business very likely tanked in the second or third quarter of 2020. So you compare that number of your gross receipts with that same quarter for last year, 2019, I'm talking about. If your revenue was down at least 25%, then you qualify for this second draw loan. Now, it's important to understand, Jay, that what we're talking about here is gross receipts, not profit. All right. So it is very possible for a business to have virtually the same gross receipts, but their profits way down because of increased costs of operation because of COVID for one reason or another. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about gross receipts. That is to say, the total revenue that you take in before you pay a nickel's worth of your business expenses is classified as gross receipts. That's the number that must have dropped by at least 25% during one quarter of 2020 for you to qualify for this second draw loan. That's very important. If you don't have that revenue drop, Jay, then you're not going to qualify for the second draw loan.
You know, I think it's critical what we're saying here. And then, based on the feedback I'm getting from you, you've sending me, different articles, different information with the urgency I can hear in your voice. When Dan and we talk, often throughout the week, keeping our pulse on what's going here so we can bring you the best content. You need to share this if you care, in my opinion, because Dan, I believe I heard you say there's going to be millions of people get hurt by the IRS and simply because they don't know this. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's absolutely right, Jay. And one of the things that you need to understand is with this PPP program, we've been talking about this for a couple of episodes now in our Pilla Tax Academy program, is the need to keep the records to be able to prove that you qualify for this loan in the first place. And one of the things that's in the new law is very specific record keeping requirements. All right. Now, one of the things you have to do with your PPP money, and this is true of the second draw program as well, is you got to use at least 60% of that money for payroll costs. All right. It has to be used for payroll costs in that ratio. The law now requires that you keep records for at least 4 years, Jay, to prove that you use that money for payroll costs. And this is a requirement now, not so much for the IRS. The IRS has got pages and pages of record keeping requirements that are already in the law. There's no news or no mystery there. And in fact, the IRS can audit any number of different components of this PPP program. But this new record keeping requirement now is imposed by the Small Business Administration, because remember, the SBA is the agency that administers these PPP loans. They're not administered by the IRS. All right, that's not the IRS has got nothing to do with it other than how the tax consequences are treated as far as administration of the loan program, the application, the funding, the forgiveness of the loan, and audits of forgiveness. All of that stuff is handled by the SBA, not the IRS. So this is a new layer of record keeping that's now been laid on any business that takes one of these PPP loans. Now, that's the bad news. The good news is, if you're following the Dan Pilla guidance, particularly with my small business tax guide and our small business master course, you're keeping these records properly anyway. All right, so you're already doing, or you should be already doing, what this new law requires you to do. So that's why it's so important to understand what your compliance obligations are here, Jay, because now we're starting to see overlap with these compliance responsibilities. And these government agencies, I'm telling you what, they have no qualms about laying these responsibilities on the shoulders of small businesses. And it doesn't make any difference whether the business can shoulder the burden or carry the burden or not. It doesn't matter to the government, Jay. They expect you to comply no matter what.
We gotta really get clarification on this. Because you talked about business can qualify for the second loan. How do you figure out the amount that you can qualify for in the loan, the PPP?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's two ways to look at that, Jay, according to the law. First of all, it's based on, just like the original PPP program, it's based on the amount of revenue that you spent on employees in the previous year. Okay, so the way it works right now is you've got two options. You can either use the 1 year period immediately preceding the date of your application. So let's say your application is filed on February the 1st. Let's say you'd use the previous 12 months, January through what, March of 2019, whatever that 12-month period is. Or you can use your payroll numbers for all of 2019. It's your option. So whatever payroll numbers are higher would be to your advantage to use those numbers, because what we're going to do is take that payroll that was paid during that period of time. Let's just say 2019. So you're going to take your payroll that was paid throughout the entirety of 2019, 12 months of 2019. You're going to divide that number by 12 and multiply by 2.5. So for example, if your payroll averaged out in 2019 to be $10,000 a month, times 2.5 is $25,000. That's what your second draw loan would be. All right. Now that is exactly the same rule as the original PPP loan, but there's a new twist now, Jay. There's always new twists in this stuff. And I'm telling you,
always a twist.
Always a twist, man. And I'm telling you, Jay, this bill is 5,593 pages long. All right. So I'm working my way.
Hold on, Dan. We got to do a timeout. How many pages did you just say?
5,593. That's the number of pages in this law.
That's why people need to share this information, Dan, because how in the world are millions of people going to understand 5,500 additional pages on top of? Now, how many pages are in the IRS code already?
Well, I don't know how many pages are in the IRS code, Jay, but I know that the National Taxpayer Advocate has estimated more than 4 million words in the Internal Revenue Code, changed more than 5,900 times just since 2000 alone. And that doesn't even count the changes that we're talking about here with the Consolidated Appropriations Act. Now, to be fair, let's be perfectly fair here. Not all of those 5,600 pages apply to the Internal Revenue Service, but there's hundreds and hundreds of them that do, and dozens of those pages apply to this Paycheck Protection Program that we're talking about here now. And I've been slogging my way through this here for the last 2 weeks, Jay, to get my arms around this, and I got my arms around it pretty good right now. I can tell you that, and we're producing a research report as I speak here that's going to lay this stuff out in detail for all of our viewers. So if you go to Pilla Tax Academy and you become partners with us, you're going to be able to get those research reports that are published in my newsletter, Pilla Talks Taxes. That's part of the program, that the part of the material that comes with your program subscription here.
Wow. I was just told by our producers that the Business Mastery course, so the Dan Pilla Business Mastery course on the PillaTaxAcademy.com platform, will be rolled out within this next 7 days. So get over there and grab that, because it's going to be awesome. Now, Dan, got a question here from one of our viewers, Trace. Trace says, should I file for forgiveness on the first PPP or wait and file all at one time later on? Great question.
Well, Trace, you got to do it separately. If you've already gotten one PPP loan, then that loan is subject to a specific forgiveness procedure that you have to pursue. You've got 10 months from the date that your last money is used in which to apply for forgiveness for the PPP loan. All right. So that's number one. So now if your PPP money is gone, even if you haven't applied for forgiveness, if it's gone, now you can apply for the second draw program, and that is subject to separate forgiveness procedures as well. So you don't do them all together. You do them one at a time.
This is awesome, Dan. All right, listen, here's the deal. Are these loans forgivable? People are going to ask that question.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is is the same forgiveness terms as the original PPP. So as long as your money is used in accordance with what the law dictates, Jay, then that loan is forgivable. Now, how the money can be used was changed by the Consolidated Appropriations Act. All right. So now let me break this down for you so you know where we're at right now. There's 8 different ways that money can be used. First and foremost is payroll. You have to use 60% of your revenue for payroll. So if you got a $25,000 or a $50,000 or a $75,000 loan, whether it's PPP or original or second draw loan, it's got to be used 60% for payroll. And payroll now can include group insurance payments for health and dental and so forth for your employees. All right. The other thing is it can be used. The remaining 40% can be used for interest on business loans, not principal, but interest. Can be used for rent or lease payments on business facilities or equipment. Can be used on utilities for business facilities. All of those contracts for business facilities or equipment had to be in place by February the 15th of 2020 in order to qualify. The other things that are now included in how you can use the money are business operating expenses. All right. So this includes payment for business computers, software, cloud, internet costs, those kinds of things, product or service delivery, processing, payment of bills. These typical things that you spend money on to operate your business fall under that category of operating expenses. The next area is property damage costs. If that property damage was caused by the civil unrest that occurred in the United States in 2020, and God forbid it continue in 2021, but we've already seen problems there. If your business has suffered damages that were not compensated by insurance or through some other means, then you can use 40% of your PPP money for that, or second draw loan money for that. Supplier costs now are also on the list. Suppliers are those people that are providing products to your company that you need to operate. All right. Products that are necessary for the continuation of your business are supplier costs. And then the last area is worker protection costs. All right. So if your business had to incur specific expenses to protect your workers or your customers because of directives by federal, state, or local government, or by recommendations from the CDC, like face masks, for example, the plexiglass dividers that we see in all the stores now, all the signage that you see all around the stores for social distancing and stickers on the floor and all of the rest of that stuff, hand sanitizer, all of those things, Jay, gloves and face masks and helmets, if that's the case, on and on and on. Whatever is recommended by CDC that you've spent money on, or is a requirement by federal, state, or local law, that is considered a worker protection cost. And it is covered by, it can be covered by PPP money. Now, there's a laundry list of what these things get. I mean, we're also talking about physical facilities here, Jay, as well. So if your company had to put up a tent, for example, to run its business, to run its restaurant operation. In Minnesota, for example, the restaurants were shut down, as most of the country was. And so, but outdoor dining was authorized. And so restaurants around Minnesota and everywhere spent a fortune on tents and picnic tables and outdoor dining areas. All of that stuff is considered a worker protection cost. If you installed air filtration systems in your business to circulate the air better and filter the air better, that would be another thing that would qualify. On-site health training facilities that you might have installed for your employees. This is covered. Jay, the list goes on and on and on of what these worker protection costs would be. And so those are covered by the PPP money this time as well. So we're talking about 8 different areas where the money can be spent. And again, I emphasize 60% of it must be spent on payroll. And that's critical. Now, there's a lot of self-employed people out there listening to me that say, well, gee, Dan, that's great, but I'm a sole proprietor. I didn't have any payroll. Does that mean I can't qualify? The answer is no, Jay. You can qualify as a self-employed person. As far as the law is concerned, what you ended up, if you're a sole proprietor, the net business income that you earned in 2019 is, or 2020, depending on what period you're using here, but 2019 is probably better for most people. So if your net business income in 2019 is the measure of your quote unquote wages for purposes of this program. So for example, if your net income in 2019 was, let's just say $100,000, you divide that by 12 and you're going to end up with plus or minus $8,000 roughly, right? You multiply that by 2.5 times, and that's the amount of money that you can get through a PPP loan as a self-employed person with no employees.
This is powerhouse information. I was going to ask you that question, then you answered it. Let's go here. What's the tax consequences of all of this with the PPP?
Yeah, that's a good question, Jay, because that's what everybody's asking. Because there's been so much confusion about this over the duration of 2020, and you and I did a program here a couple of weeks ago where we talked about the tax consequences, and all of that's changed now with the Consolidated Appropriations Act. So here's the deal with the tax consequences. Let me just tick this off a little bit here now. When you get the PPP loan on the front end, just like any other loan, it's not considered income. You get a loan from the bank for any reason. You get a loan to buy a car, you get a loan to buy a house, a building, to build out facilities to build out offices or equipment in your production facility. Any loan that you receive is not considered income on the front end when you get it. All right. Now, when you pay the loan back, you don't get a deduction, because you didn't have to count the principal as income, so you don't count the principal repayment as a deduction. You get to write off the interest, however. Now, when we're talking about a PPP loan or a second draw loan, the same rule applies. You don't count it as income on the front end. The difference is, Jay, if you use the money as authorized by law, 60% for payroll and the rest of the 40% for those other 7 things we talked about, you don't have to pay it back. All right, it becomes a forgivable loan. And so now if the loan is forgiven, you don't have to pay taxes on the debt forgiveness. Ordinarily, if you don't pay a loan back and that loan is canceled, the cancellation of debt is counted as income, because remember, you got the loan on the front end, didn't have to pay the taxes. If you don't have to pay it back on the back end, then that's generally considered taxable income. Not with the PPP loan. It's not taxable income, and it gets better. Not only is it not taxable income, but all of the expenses that you pay with the loan proceeds, all of the payroll expenses and all these other things we talked about, rent and utilities and worker protection, all those other things, Jay, you can write them off your tax return just like you normally would under regular circumstances. So it's really a double benefit. You don't have to claim the money as income. You don't have to pay it back, and yet you still get a tax deduction for when you use that money properly under the law. It's a double benefit, Jay.
Wow. Wow. Trace has got a great question over here. A phenomenal question, Trace. Trace says, since nobody else is asking questions, by the way, which people should take advantage of this, we're going to wrap it up. But the 2.5 times of my payroll does not cover all the costs you listed, Dan. So
no, it doesn't cover all the costs, Trey. There's no question about it. You're not going to cover.
We just had Dan's computer overheat. So guess what? Well, Trace, we got to get that question to you answered, and maybe we'll inbox you. Why don't you do us a favor, Trace? Why don't you inbox that question over at Pilla Tax Academy? So just inbox the question, and then we'll get Dan to answer that question to you specifically. Can't do that for everybody, but I want to make sure, since that's such a great question. And what we'll do for everyone is we will post Dan's answer on the Facebook page, facebook.com/Pilla Tax Academy. So make sure you're paying attention to that page. By the way, every day, there's great tax tips that are coming on the Facebook page at Pilla Tax Academy every day. So Dan's grabbing information, he's spitting it out, and we're taking it and we're giving it to you guys. And that's free information. Now, what I encourage you to do is everybody get over to PillaTaxAcademy.com. There's 3 different categories that people fall into. You've got your tax professionals. So someone that is a CPA, a tax attorney, an enrolled agent, those folks, you want to get the free report that Dan has available there. Also, you want to consider grabbing the tax defense conference that was professionally recorded. So this is the very first time that Dan had this event professionally recorded, mastered, and then reproduced and put on the platform. That's now available to be able to get that information. And that is a complete 2 days of Dan showing tax professionals how to really potentially double their business. You can potentially double your business because of all the information he shares with you during that and how to best represent your clients. Then you got the second category, which is the business owners. So if you're a small business owner, you want to grab the tax mastery course, or the business mastery course that Dan put on. Hours of information, hands-on, Dan showing you every single nook, cranny, and increase that you'll have to deal with the IRS. There's over 200 things that you have to know. Now, me as a business owner, I had no idea that there's 200 things I had to know. But guess what happened? Because I didn't know all those things, I had issues with the IRS. How do you think I know Dan Pilla? And who's been helping me deal with those issues? Well, guess what? You got someone that can give you the information to stay out of that hot seat. But if you happen to get in that hot seat, now you've got the information and the access to Dan to help deal and resolve the issue. That's why we talk about tax resolution. And then you've got the everyday taxpayer, people that are working a 9-to-5 job, someone that's self-employed, and all these tax benefits and all the tax rights that you need to know. Guess what? 99% of the people probably do not know that information. So you've got that information in the taxpayer rights mastery course that you can pre-order, that will be up here within the next week, that you can have that delivered. Now, my staff, the production crew, they promised me that they're going to get that all delivered up on the site within the next, in the back office. There's so much technology that goes into these things, but they're doing a great job and they're going to deliver. And so we want you to know that we appreciate you in being involved here. And what I want to do is spend just a moment as we wrap this up, really encouraging you to take this serious And grades 1 through 12, I want you to think about how much education did you have with the tax code? And again, give me some feedback on the chat board. People can just type in how much did you learn about how to deal with taxes grades 1 through 12? What about when you went to college? How much did you learn about taxes? Now, how important is it to know how taxes affect us in our everyday lives? I mean, it can take you out if you don't know it. So what we want you to do with the Pilla Tax Academy is we want you to get involved and get educated and step it up. We know it's not the sexiest of subjects in the world. Who in the world wants to talk about the IRS and taxes? But what if we can make taxes actually sexy, appealable? Well, what do I mean by sexy? Well, what if you're educated, you're informed? How sexy is that? How appealing is that if you have the knowledge to begin to win instead of losing with the IRS? Like, I can almost guarantee you that most people are not taking advantage of all the tax advantages available to them because they don't have the knowledge. You'll get that on the Pilla Tax Academy. So get plugged in. There's free reports for each one of those 3 categories. There's tons of information. Invest in yourself. Grab one of those courses, if not all of them. If you are a tax professional, I would say you need all 3 of those courses. If you are a small business owner, this is a no-brainer. You get the business owner mastery course. Why? Because more than likely you're going to spin your wheels and cost yourself unbelievable amounts of money in fines, penalties, and so forth and so on. Because we've heard Dan Pilla say these folks at the IRS are acting like adversaries towards people, especially business owners. It's crazy. Great show. We'll get Dan back here next week. Again, he was burning so hot that his computer burned out. It's going to be so funny when I talk to him. Go, what did you do? You brought so much fire information. Could y'all all drop a comment and give Dan a big appreciation? He'll go over to the Facebook page. He'll see it. Let him know that you appreciate it. He's standing back. He's, taking time away from his family to share this free information with everybody. What a patriot, right? So everybody go ahead and put in a big thank you to Dan. And we thank each and every one of you for tuning in. We want you to be a part of what we're doing here with the Pilla Tax Academy. Get plugged in. Until next week, you guys go out and have a wonderful, wonderful evening and a wonderful rest of your week. Bye-bye.